Jasami would love to welcome HollyMRichards, our esteemed illustrator, our artistic illustrator. Holly, I would like to thank you for participating in World Book Day and sharing the importance of reading, but illustrations more importantly for children today. So thank you very much. Now, I'm delighted to say that our followers have asked several questions of you. So from the artistic point of view, we will start with the very first one. How do you decide which animals to base the stories on? And once you have selected those animals, do you do research into their behaviors to help with the story? Recognizing that stories come with some kind of predefined animals in them, but then you elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I think probably best to pick an example. So for Wee Wobblers, it came with a series of animals that were to be included. So the first thing I did was I looked into what the animals would look like in real life, and I think I quite like to get the proportions right on the animals. Some of them I'm drawn to more. So the tiger is very central to that. So that was where I went to first, because I know he's a recurring character. Some of them only feature for a page or two. So I like to pick out, like sometimes a character will speak to you. So the tiger, I knew it was important and they're fun to draw. And then with Bernie, it all centers around him and he's a bear. So with him, it's almost more important with the character designs and getting the age of the bear right, because he's quite young. So I looked into lots of different bear pictures for that and lots of studies of bears just to get it right.
And I understand in Bernie the Bear, there's a little bee in there too. So that must be difficult because that's more an insect than an animal. Is that a difficult one for you to encounter?
Yeah, sort of. It was a little bit more of a challenge because when you zoom into an insect, they're not always the cutest. Luckily, with her being a bumblebee, you can make her a bit fuzzier, a bit fluffier, and sort of emphasize the cuteness, bring it out that way. But that one was definitely more of a challenge.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's great. We love the fuzzy animals. So with, you brought up about Wee Wobblers, and when you're starting to do, the creation and you do the research. So what's the first step into it? With sketches, and how far does it go before you start the next step?
So first off, if I've got text to start with, I'll read that through a few times, and I'll make a first round of notes on anything that particularly speaks to me, or if there are any key details that I need to make sure I remember throughout. Sort of if the children have particular distinctive features, or if any of the animals have a certain characteristic. And then I'll go into researching the characters, so sort of animals that portray them, and I'll make like a mood board. So I've just got put all of my research and different pictures for inspiration in one place and look into the setting and stuff. And then sometimes I'll create different scenes, like mock-ups, just get straight in with media, just play around putting the animals in these elements. And other times I'll dive straight into trying to put out compositions, just a rough idea of like a very initial storyboard, just to see the story pieced together. It sort of depends on what speaks to me first, but those are the two sort of first steps.
Well, I notice on the two books that we have, Wee Wobblers, and then of course you've done the cover. Well, you've done the cover for several books, but the other children's book is Charlie, The Life of Charlie Ryan, A Squirrel's Tale. And those two covers are very different. How do you decide which should work? Because the colors on Wee Wobblers are very evocative and bright and speak to you. So, and they're slightly different with Charlie, but that is appropriate to that. So how do you decide which you should do?
Well, sometimes it just depends on the audience. So Wee Wobblers is for quite young kids. So I knew I wanted vibrant colors for that one to sort of draw it out. And I use different media between them. So I use gouache paints for Wee Wobblers because you get a very bright, very opaque color with that. So I knew it would stand out. And for Charlie, with that one, it had a lot of feedback with the author herself. So sort of going in what we thought was right. And we wanted to get that realistic element for Charlie. So I used a dip pen and ink to get the level of detail there. So you knew where he is a real squirrel rather than just this fictional character. You wanted to get the look right.
Another follower has asked this question is, what is the hardest, most difficult character animal that you've ever had to draw?
I think for me, people are where I struggle the most, but because I draw animals so often, and it's getting their proportions right. Although I wouldn't say I found them difficult enough. Like I enjoyed it. So the characters for Hell's Daughter, they really come to life. So you want to do them justice. And I had Trinity Rose send me some ideas of what she wanted those characters to look like. So I wasn't running completely blind. I had like her input was really helpful on that. And I think they came out very well.
Actually, they're so evocative because of their pencil sketch. Is that correct? They're black and white. But even though it's that, there's the dimension to it. It's very three-dimensional. It's not a flat character, and that we've seen in the books. And then obviously one of the most popular is Alex. So now, where did you work with Trinity Rose on creating exactly what that should look like?
Yeah, we had a lot of back and forth. So I'd send her some rough sketches. Immediately, I'd sort of ask her, are there must-haves for the characters that aren't always like in the description, or sometimes if the description is more vague, so it allows you to think about what we want. But I thought I want her interpretation of them. If I'm drawing it, I want it to be how she sees them to be. So I got her to send me reference photos of how she saw the characters, and then we worked off of that, and I'd build up like rough examples of these images and just sort of keep her in the loop, so we go backwards and forwards a lot just so I was getting them right.
Another one of our followers would like to know, when you are working on illustrations, artistic, whatever it might be, can you describe a perfect day for you?
So a perfect day, I think a day where there's lots of natural light is probably the best, because it just makes it easier to see the paper, get all the colors right, and it's quite calm. So the right lighting can make a perfect day, I think. But otherwise than just like lots of cups of tea, and a day where all of your materials work the way that they're supposed to, where the ink runs smooth and nothing dries out too quickly, and that would be a perfect day. It's quite nothing too complicated, but just the right light will do it.
Excellent. And it's wonderful to see that it's something that nature can bring along to help you with that. So you brought up about the different mediums that you do use. Is there one that you particularly love, or does it depend upon the project itself?
I think it probably depends on the project itself. I love working with dip pen and ink because you get a real texture to the lines and the way that it sort of translates onto the paper. I really like how that sort of comes alive, but it's not appropriate for all projects. But I do enjoy getting the right media for a project. You can really see like how well something suits, and it can really change the tone of something, and depending on how you draw it and which audience it will speak to.
Yes. So that brings to question in that the different mediums that you do use, for those of us who are like myself, kind of neophytes, what are the different mediums that you do use?
I dabble in quite a lot of different things, mostly sort of pencil and ink and watercolors, acrylics and gouache paints, and then combining across those different things gets quite nice results as well.
Excellent. The next question is that what has been your most challenging project as an illustrator?
I thought that's a very good question. Probably We Wobblers, because it's the first children's picture book that I've done, and it's quite a big undertaking. And you had the combination of people and animals, so getting the balance right of the reality, and like there's a lot of imagination. So they start off in a gym, which is very real world situated, and then you've got to bring in these jungle elements. So it's just getting the balance right of where all of those elements sort of intermingle. It was quite a challenge, but it was great fun.
So I know you have, as you mentioned, Bernie the Bear, so you have another project that you're working on. Do you enjoy working on the children's books?
Yes, it's quite fun to say everything is visual. So unlike sort of Hell's Daughter or Charlie Ryan, where you have to pick out the right elements from the text and you've got to balance it carefully, with a children's book you can just go all in on the imagery, and they're written very visually as well. So there's a lot to go on, and you get a lot of freedom in sort of the backgrounds, and you can add in like little details and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun.
I know the colors are phenomenal, and we've actually sent a few out that to a few of our affiliates and associates, and everybody, there isn't anyone who hasn't said they love the colors in it. And I think that's one of the most dynamic aspects to it, are, you know, the richness of the colors. So that's a children's book, and that will probably hopefully inspire other children to want to, you know, to be artistic and create as you go on. Do you have a particular book that you enjoyed as a child that inspired you to go into art?
I wouldn't necessarily say any book in particular. I grew up reading lots of different books, and both my parents were very artistic so I was always surrounded by books and by art, and my dad was like sort of instrumental in teaching me how to draw and stuff like that. So when I came to choose what I wanted to study at university, it was always going to be a toss-up between English or art, and then I found illustration, which really beautifully marries the two. It was always sort of something I was going to sort of destined to do almost.
Excellent. We're very happy to hear that. So I know authors often tell us that characters come alive in their head and such. Do the characters that you illustrate come alive for you in that way?
Yeah. So sometimes when I get a text, there's often a scene that will pop into my head and I'll go, that I have to draw. Sometimes it's less of, with the animals and the children's books, the characters, I'm like, yeah, I know how I want to draw them. I know the softness and stuff. But when it's, I think because of how many books I read with, so the older audience stuff, I don't necessarily get a feel for the characters, but there'll be a scene that I'll be like, that I want to draw. I want to see how I can put that particular scene onto paper.
Well, I know not just doing the books for Jasami, which we are delighted with, but I know that you also offer other opportunities. And there is a link on the website if anyone should want to, work with you on a private nature kind of thing. So the final question that we have is, of all of the illustrations that you've drawn, and there's been, animals and people. So if there's one particular animal and one particular person that you have to say is your favorite, they're kind of like children, I know, so you might not have a favorite, but do you?
I probably have favorite ones for each project, rather than a favorite overall. There's a thread in Wee Wobblers I absolutely love. It's where the tiger bursts onto the scene and the monkeys scatter. I really like how the tiger has sort of come to life in that one. I'm quite proud of that. Hell's Daughter, I really like the piece I did of Alex, but Enzo is my favorite, and I think that's probably due to the reaction I got from Trinity Rose when I presented him to her. He was one that it came together really quickly, and I finished it without really showing her too much of it. So when I sent it over and she said that I captured him perfectly just as she'd seen it, I was like, it was a really good moment. So that felt really good. And with Charlie Ryan, Charlie was great to draw. He's so much fun, but my favorite is actually the owl when he's got a little sore eye. So he's sort of winking, and that one was really fun to draw with all the feathers and stuff like that.
Yes, and that was very detailed. That was absolutely wonderful in there. So, well, is there, to finish up the interview, is there any advice or any thoughts of inspiration to young artists that you would offer?
The most important thing I would say is just draw everything you can all the time, like every day. It doesn't have to be all day, every day, but draw a little bit every day and just practice, and you'll look back at your work and just see the improvements you make just by drawing every day, whether it's from pictures, whether you're drawing other people's art or whether you're drawing from life. Just the more practice you do, the more it will benefit you.
Holly, I'd love to thank you so much for participating in World Book Event Day. It's for children. It's about children and teens. And I know we've got some extra special activities coming up that we will participate in, which we won't say anything about now. We just want people to look at the website. So once again, thank you very much. And we wish you a good day. Thank you. If you enjoyed the video and would like to watch more, hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Also, please see the description box below for a link to our website and other social media platforms.